What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm Colton.
And
hey,
do I need to be introduced here?
Yeah, you know what? Our special guest joining us today from All Things Tavern. You guys, everybody knows him. Ace, what's up, man?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be back here on the debate. It's been a while. This is, I believe, my fourth appearance here, and I just love to be on this debate. It's one of my favorite listens of the week.
Yeah, man, we're happy to have you. It's kind of fitting. We've got an Impact topic tonight, and we have the Brace for Impact crew with Ace and Colton.
Yep.
So, and Ace hardcore repping Shot of Nostalgia as well. Fridays at 7 on our YouTube channel, Saturdays on our Apple and Spotify. Colton also pops in on Shot of Nostalgia. So give all the listeners the skinny on Brace for Impact, how they can find it, what you guys are doing over there, and Shot of Nostalgia.
So I'll take the lead on Shot of Nostalgia here. Obviously, 7 p.m. on Fridays, like Chad just said, and we are covering all things Saturday night's main event. The WWF catalog right now, we're in 1988. This latest episode that just dropped last Friday we covered the historic match between Andre and Hogan with the twin referees, and we have all the shenanigans that go on with Ted DiBiase and buying the title and 35 million people watching a wrestling show. It's apropos that we're talking about ratings and everything that happened on Tuesday night and talking about trying to clamor to get almost 1 million people to watch. Keep in mind, 1988, there was once 35 million people watching a wrestling show on NBC to see Andre take the title off Hogan. So join the ride. Check it out with us. We're almost done. We're about halfway through that season, and it's been a blast thus far.
And then for Brace for Impact, you can catch us Thursday nights on Turnbuckle Tavern YouTube channel at pretty much 10 o'clock, right after Impact goes off the air. We jump on, man, and you can catch us on Apple and Spotify on Friday mornings. First thing, man. So we covering everything Impact Wrestling, gearing up for Bound for Glory in Chicago here in just 2 weeks, man. Or actually, it's a week. Yeah, by the time this airs, this will be a week. So yeah, it's really pretty exciting times. Josh Alexander back on the scene. It's a good time to be an Impact Wrestling fan.
Yeah, Impact continues to crush it, guys, and the consistency of that product. If you're not watching closely, and we talk about it all the time, sometimes consuming wrestling can be laborsome. There's a lot to watch, but dedicate your time to Impact Wrestling. It's about an hour a week. And if not, come check us out on audio form. We'll accompany you on your drive to work or from work. We'll cover you everything Brace for Impact, 10 p.m. on Thursday nights.
Yeah, and if you guys want to get your Impact fix this week at the Tavern, I know me and Ace on Monday on Wrestling Tonight, we'll be previewing Bound for Glory. We probably won't go as in-depth as the guys on Thursday night for Brace for Impact. So if you want even more in-depth analysis, check out Brace for Impact on Thursday to get ready for their biggest show of the year. I mean, Bound for Glory is their mania, right? I always thought Bound for Glory was like the A show and Slammiversary is probably the B show, right?
Yeah, I would say definitely. So. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Bound for Glory feels really big. And then I know Josh Alexander, the walking weapon, returning to programming makes it feel even larger. So we'll see if he can take that title from Alex Shelley. But I think it is their biggest event of the year, and they're throwing everything out. We're going to get Kenta versus Chris Sabin. We're getting Will Ospreay versus Speedball Mike Bailey. The build's been fantastic. And, they're jamming a lot in that 4-week taping we got to explore with Mid-South Mayhem. And we're going to be in Chicago before we know it for Bound for Glory weekend. And it's going to be a blast.
Brace for Impact, a far cry from the Honor Society Ring of Honor breakdowns.
Yeah, that was rough.
A little more meat on the bone with Brace for Impact instead of Honor Society. Just a hair.
Yeah, just a bit. But Colt, we bonded on those weeks on Thursday nights. It brought our bond closer.
It did, man. Yeah, and it was good. It got our rapport and our cadence. Having to break down a 19 match card really get you good with each other, man.
I feel like it definitely set the stage for you guys to move into Brace for Impact. So,
Definitely.
yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned it too, Chad, because Ace, you can find him also on Wrestling Tonight on Mondays on YouTube and Tuesday on audio.
Yeah, check it out. That's
always
kind of
a
our
crazy
catch-all.
good show.
Yeah, it's our catch-all wrestling show. If you're just wanting news and the big topics of the week, and then all the smaller topics, we try to cover as much as we can.
All right, guys. Well, we've all been here before, man. We know we have 3 topics to debate. Tom's not here, so there's no tomfoolery. If you guys are ready, we'll get right into the first topic.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. First topic of the evening. Should WWE have handled Jade's first appearance differently? Her first appearance was on the pre-show for Fastlane. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to jump in this quick, like Tom would if he was here.
Getting the Tom spot there.
I'm getting in the Tom spot here. We talked about this a little bit. We kind of brushed over it a little bit on Wrestling Tonight, so I'm just going to reiterate because I feel even strongly about it this time. I think it was a mistake. I think, we're always, as wrestling fans, you got your AEW fans and your WWE fans, and they're always kind of nitpicking at each other. Well, if AEW would have done that, blah, 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 or if WWE would have done that. If AEW would have debuted a Charlotte Flair type of wrestler on 0 hour of Full Gear, shit would hit the social media fan. I'm sorry, it would. Now, I get it. You're wanting to remind us, hey, she's here. We have her. You're wanting that out in the press. You're wanting people to know, beat them over the head. We stole her from AEW. But I just think it's kind of a weak sauce move. The first time we physically see this genetic specimen, this freak athlete, Jade Cargill, on our WWE programming, it's walking in a parking lot garage with Triple H. I'm just like, come on. It left a little to be desired for me. I'm old school. I like seeing people come in, shoot angles. I know people are going to be like, well, they've got to get her ready. We heard Triple H say, they're going to slow burn this and take her time so she's ready and she can come out swinging. But I mean, I feel like there's ways to book it where you don't need to expose her, but still yet bring her in a very compelling way. And I'm sorry, walking through a parking lot garage and hugging your new boss is not compelling to me, especially now. If this was Mania and that happens, it holds a little more weight. The fact that this all took place on a pre-show, not even of one of your big 4 events, it took place on your pre-show of Fastlane. Come on, WWE, you're better than that.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on what you said too, Chad, because I was thinking, you said they want to beat us over the head that they have her, that they stole her. You've already done that with the tweet and all the social media and letting ESPN be the one to break the news that Jade's coming. She's supposed to be this huge force coming in. You've already let us know. The next thing she needs to do is come in and just wreck shit.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to the next time we see her is when she gets into her first program. The fact that she comes out of a fucking limousine or a car on Fastlane, I think it waters it down, man. I think the fact that these are 2 big things that we've already talked about with her with no action. It's watering it down.
Yeah, and I gotta agree. I like what you said, Chad, about if this had been on Mania and this had been a backstage segment, that it would have, held a lot more weight. Of course it would, and especially if it would have been during the show. This was on the fucking pre-show. Like,
yeah, right.
Like, first of all, yeah, I think that was the biggest slip up. Because who knows how fast they're going to bring her in. There's a lot of speculation as to that, whether she's going to pop up on NXT, whether she's going to pop up on the main roster immediately. So I don't know. It just seemed a little. I just don't really get the idea, especially on the pre-show of Fastlane, man. I mean, this is not a show that a lot of people, I pick and choose my WWE pay-per-views that I tune in for live. And newsflash, pal, fucking Fastlane is not one of them. Like I would not admit, even if I had decided I was going to watch Fastlane live, I wasn't watching the pre-show, man. I got shit to do on a Saturday. I was mowing my lawn during the pre-show. I guarantee it. So it would have been completely lost on me, and I'm sure it was lost on plenty of other fans. I mean, she's such a big deal, man. Like, why? I don't know. It almost makes her look. It takes away from the big bad that she's supposed to be for me to just kind of show her as like, oh, she's just this new recruit that we're throwing around the Performance Center. She's backstage with Triple H here at Fastlane. Like, just seems kind of odd. I mean, I'd just much rather not see her until her debut. And if that's 3 months down the road, so be it. That's fine, man. Just save it. I don't, it seemed like an odd choice to me. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to go for, obviously WWE's been working on their backstage segment presentation a little bit more over the last, 6 to 8 months. I mean, ever since, and so maybe they're going for a little bit more of reality with it. I just, and if that's the case, I guess I can see it a little bit. It just didn't land with me, man. I would have held on to it.
There's a famous clip, and I should have pulled it for this. There's a famous clip of Allen Iverson where a reporter asks him something about practice.
We're talking about practice.
And he said, "We're talking about practice." Like, I feel like that's going to be what everybody's talking about. Is, man, this is the pre-show. When did the pre-show?
About the pre-show. Yeah.
We're talking about the pre-show here, man.
And I think you nailed it at the end there, Colton. I mean, everything everybody said was perfect because I agree 100%. This could have been done so much better. And especially the platform of Fastlane leaves a lot to be desired. Pre-show leaves a lot to be desired. I understand the spirit of what they were going for. They wanted to treat her like a big signing athlete, been meeting with the boss in the back, making it feel like she's shaking hands, almost like the entry level into an NBA game where they're showing off their drip, walking into NBA on TNT type of stuff. But it didn't land because this is pro wrestling. And I think her biggest presence should be done, whether it be in the ring or shooting an angle, like Chad said. I think her initial presentation, you have to assume that a lot of the WWE audience doesn't know who she is. So the idea that she's coming in as an established star, that's great. But you also need to show people why they should care about her. And if she's going to come in on an angle after this, like you said, 3 months from now, that's awesome. But you should have waited, because when she shows up, it should be a surprise. Now everybody knows she's signed. And of course, we saw the tweet and all that. They treat it like a known entity. But I would like it better if she was to attack, say, Rhea Ripley and start a program immensely up into the Rumble, or just be a surprise entrant in the Rumble. There's so many other ways to do this, but this was half-baked to me. And I understand the spirit, like I said, of what they were going for, but it just wasn't there.
Good call on the NBA players entering the arena, showing off their drip pre-game. I didn't even think of that. That's definitely what they were going for. But the whole time I'm seeing it, all I'm thinking, and maybe they've moved on from this booking philosophy. Maybe I'm an old head and I'm just like waxing, romantic about the past. But what happened to surprises? Like back in the day, if you had a bullet in your chamber, like a Jade Cargill, who you have signed, locked into a contract, and you're just like, let's put her out here on the pre-show. I feel like that wouldn't even have crossed their minds. They would know, like, man, with us having her under contract now, we have a moment. She is a big moment we can deliver. So let's hold her for the right opportune time and pull the trigger when it'll really blow the fans away. I feel like this is just kind of, they're going for that sporting feel, that sports television sporting feel, but it didn't hit me like that, man. It felt like you said, Sneed, felt a little watered down. And little things like this, sure, we're being nitpicky. We're hardcore fans. We're picking apart every little choice they make. And when she hits the roster, I'm sure there'll be a big, nice response for her. But things like this, no matter how small or minuscule or meaningless some may view it, when you have things like this, I truly feel like they take away from the final debut. Like even if the debut, I'm sure will be nice. It'll be big. It'll be over, blah, blah, blah. But imagine how much bigger, better it would be if we never saw her until that moment.
Well, to top that, Chad, I mean, think about 1999 when Chris Jericho came in. Imagine that he debuted on a pre-show of Armageddon on lead up to his interaction with The Rock. So, yes, it'd be awesome to see. Like, everybody kind of knew Jericho was coming over. If you were following at the time an emerging internet in its infancy of stages, you knew that he was coming over because he was disenchanted with the booking in WCW. It was the worst kept secret for the Y2K build up to the Y2J stuff. But if they would have wasted that, it would have took all the steam out. And now you only get one debut. They already used it on Jade, and it was in the backstage segment on Fastlane.
Yep.
Just can you imagine though? Like can you imagine if Edge had came into the backstage area and shook Tony Khan's hand?
Oh, take the piss out of it, man.
Come on, man.
Well, dude, you've even heard talent complain about stepping on the pop. Like I remember when Dean Ambrose came back from injury and Seth Rollins was in a segment in the ring, and Seth Rollins says, I think it was one of those situations where a tag team was going against him and he needed a partner. And Seth Rollins was like, I don't need a partner. I need a lunatic. And then they hit the music. It's like, just by and Dean went on to bitch about that. Moxley, we know him as now. He said that just by floating that lunatic, yeah, I got a pop, but it stepped on the pop a little bit. God damn, a segment on a pre-show, that steps all over the pop.
Yeah, I love that. I remember that segment vividly because that's when Moxley came back to WWE being jacked. Like it was the first time he's come back and like, whoa, he really put some work in the gym. But you're right. I think they get so lost in this. Like everybody knows she's signed. It was viral on Twitter, but they take for granted that the story being told on the screen is not being told on the internet. It's two separate things. So they want her to be looked upon as a big deal. She needs to be on the level of Bianca Belair, of Charlotte, of Rhea Ripley. She needs to be presented as such. And I understand interacting with the COO in the back of the backstage puts her in a light that she's important enough to have that. But there's a world that you can live in where she debuts, and then you could do the same exact thing where she's shaking hands with Triple H because now she's officially a part of the Raw roster, the SmackDown roster, whatever it may be. This was just half-baked to me again because it's on the pre-show. This was SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. If this was even, WrestleMania, that should be the platform, not, pre-show on Fastlane. It's insane to me.
Shaking hands and kissing babies, buddy.
They're big on these media scrums now. Like if they would have done it a different way where she came in, attacked somebody, and then came to the media scrum to shake Triple H's hand and then kind of set a mission statement at that time.
I'm here. I'm going to fuck shit up. Like something, man.
Fuck somebody up, then come to the scrum and shake hands.
Yeah.
But if they feel like she's not ready, if that's the case, if they want to wait for her, I think Colton said it best before, then wait 3 months to show her on TV. Like let everybody almost forget that she's signed to the roster. And then when she shows up, whether it be in the Rumble or a SmackDown, you pop a rating on a Raw. That has so much. Then everybody remembers that. So maybe time will pass and we're all going to sit there and remember that, at the same time, like maybe they'll rewrite history and pretend her debut is whatever it's going to be in 2 months or a month from now. But for me, I'm going to remember that she was shaking hands in the back, first shown on a WWE screen in canon, not in that capacity. And that's kind of sad because you only get one debut.
Yep.
Yeah, Ace, I like what you said too about the fact that, some of the WWE audience isn't familiar with Jade. They're not going to know who she is necessarily. And what we all always say about Jade is that she has the look. She has the look of a pro wrestler, debatably more than anybody else in pro wrestling right now. So, I mean, that's how you introduce, that's how you get people to know who she is you got to show her off and do it. I mean, God, do it in a series of pre-tape vignettes teasing her debut. Don't do it just walking up backstage saying hey to the boss, they
don't do that a whole lot on the main roster.
They don't. And the last time they did it, and that I thought it worked pretty well, and it didn't pan out because the dude had some personal issues, but I liked the way they did the Lars Sullivan vignettes.
Yeah.
When he was supposed to be coming up from NXT, because I was kind of just clued back into WWE at the time, and I wasn't really watching a lot of NXT. I'm like, who the fuck is this dude? Like,
it's funny too because they do that stuff on NXT. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Brian Pillman Jr. and his vignettes, kind of mysterious vignettes.
Who?
Alexis King, I should say.
Oh, Alexis, gotcha.
Alexis King, yeah. I think
now I know who you're talking about.
He's better known as Lexus King. But yeah, man, they don't do it. And I'm like, that was kind of your bread and butter. Everyone remembers the Mr. Perfect vignettes, the $1 Million Man vignettes. And now here we are. You've got someone, we do that enough. I miss those things.
Yep. I agree, man. All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts on Jade's first appearance before we move on?
No Fastlane pre-show for me.
Do better. That's just do better, man.
Yeah.
All right. Second topic of the evening. When Josh Alexander wins the championship back, what realistic program do you think would bring the maximum amount of eyes to weekly TV? So who should he feud with next? Ace, this was your topic, so I'll defer to you to go first on this.
So I made sure to put the caveat realistic because I know there's a lot of names we could float in there. And I still think, a name like Phil Brooks, CM Punk is out there. He's still unrealistic to me. So I'm not going to include him. I have two names in mind here. I'm going to start with one that's already in-house on the roster. People call him Mr. Impact. It's Moose. I think there's a lot to be said about the history between the two guys. This is where the reign started for Alexander. When he first won that historic reign, it started there. But you can trace it all the way back. When Josh Alexander won his first title, and then we had Moose cashing in and beating him in front of his family, and they started that whole run there where then Alexander was chasing. So I love that feud. Moose has been understated on the roster right now. We know he signed on for long-term. I think at this point, Moose is going to be Mr. Impact going forward. He is clearly to use the word from AEW, a pillar of the company, and they believe in him. So I think having that initial program reopens the wound between the two guys. I think there's a lot to be said about the two of them carrying Impact programming because they're the most entertaining guys they have on the roster main event wise. But if you're bringing someone out from elsewhere, I look at the names and I look at some of the free agents. Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler. I think his 90 days will be up on December 21st. He was released in mid-September, which is the perfect time to build towards January's Hard to Kill. So Dolph Ziggler, I mean, he's a lifer. 2004 to 2023 has yet to explore anywhere else. And I think on Wrestling Tonight, I was talking about where should he go. I was talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it's going to be interesting to see all these different matchups. And it seems like the forbidden door, if you will, is open between New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact again. We saw the trio of Josh Alexander, Alex Shelley, and Chris Sabin just compete in trios action against Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii just last night as of record time, October 9th. So they're in-house together. They're able to use the talent. So it'd be the perfect bridge that maybe he signs a short-term contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling and then maybe work with Impact and see him bring him back. So I would be down for that. And see Nick Nemeth in a New Japan ring and also an Impact ring, that'd be a sight to see.
Yeah, I like what you said there, Ace. Moose, especially for those of us who follow week-to-week programming, Moose is the most, I think, logical choice, and there is a lot more meat on the bone left to tell. It wouldn't take much to reheat that story up at all. Like they had a great feud together. I was able to see some of those shows live, some of the payoffs of that feud a couple of years back. It's great. And like you said, Moose has signed the longest contract extension in Impact Wrestling history. So it would be really cool. I mean, that's a logical move. I think for your Impact, faithful, that's going to get people excited. People are definitely not going to miss a week-to-week show for that. Man, Dolph, I hadn't even thought about Dolph, and that would, I got chills thinking about it when you said it. I think that would be my pick at this point. I think would be Dolph. Bring somebody from the outside who people are excited to see. I'm with you. I think CM Punk's a long shot. I mean, another one that I think it wouldn't necessarily have to be a super long run, but we've still got Bully Ray floating around. And they had a pretty hot feud as well, man. I was
really hot feud.
I was live in the crowd when Bully Ray pulled his wife over the barricade, and that was some of the craziest shit I've seen in pro wrestling. I was losing my mind. And as much as I think I like the idea of a Moose Josh Alexander feud better than I like a Bully Ray feud. I also just, right now I just feel like we're not doing a whole lot with Bully Ray in Impact, but he's still around and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. So that could be, those guys, that was some of the best storytelling in pro wrestling in the last 2 years was that. So I'd be willing to see either one of those again and be very happy with it.
Yeah. The Dolph Ziggler pick for an outside person, that was all over my mind too, especially if you build him up. Dolph is great as a heel. If you bring him in like the despicable guy from the big company coming down to show this novice brand how it's done, and him take on the match quality of those two, I feel like would be off the charts. I have another pick though. I'm going to hold off and do my Impact in-house talent. The in-house talent, if they shine him up the right way at certain points in Impact's past, they've got him to a point where I thought they were going to really do something with him, and they've never really went all the way through with it and pushed. I have two people that kind of fit this bill. Number one is shining up a veteran that's been there for not a ton of time, but he's kind of established himself as an Impact talent, and that's Brian Myers. If he's packaged the right way, like when he was in there with Cardona, and there was something there where I thought that he could have transformed into kind of a upper mid card, top of the card guy. I think as far as getting eyes on, that would set at least a small portion of the wrestling fan base. All of the people who love them could maybe bring some eyes, but I don't know how long that feud could go. Another one, and this is if you were wanting to put a young guy, an up and comer in a top spot. And I think this guy has champion written all over him. I think he's a face of a company. If he can kind of brush up his mic skills just a little more and kind of come into his own, Jake Something, man. I would love to see Jake Something put in a top position, build him towards that. Maybe he's not ready now, and he's certainly, I know the question is who's going to bring eyes. He's certainly not going to bring eyes, but if you're wanting like your just kind of workhorse bell cow champion of Josh Alexander, giving a little bit of that rub to a new guy so you can have a couple new fresh faces in that upper echelon, Jake Something fits the bill. Now this is kind of, I don't know how I feel about this because he's not Impact. It would be, but they have done work with New Japan in the past. They're pretty friendly with New Japan. Obviously they do the multiverse show. I would love to see Bullet Club enter this company, target Josh Alexander, and add a little bit of stank on David Finley's run as the leader. Put David Finley in there with Josh Alexander, make him like a Japanese faction assassin coming in to take what Alexander has. It would obviously be a good way to just build Alexander even more and taking on all these comers. He would eventually, hold that title. I don't think you give the Impact title to David Finley, but man, you could get a long program where they just make his life a living hell. The whole crew, as directed by their leader, David Finley. I think David Finley's underrated. I think he could be a big time guy if pushed the right way. That'd be fun to watch.
I think the David Finley pick is understated. I think that is an awesome pick because really, if you think about it from the relationship standpoint of New Japan Pro Wrestling Impact, if you think when it initially was started, it was to prop Impact up. And I think the roles have reversed dramatically now where I think New Japan Pro Wrestling needs Josh Alexander. They need the exposure of the Impact brand because they're struggling. I think they need a lot of the young talent. And I think the talent exchange could be something that would be fantastic for both sides. And I'm not saying David Finley needs to have this feud, but it would be good to bring some eyes back to New Japan Pro Wrestling because the things that are happening, nobody's talking about it. No one talked about Sonata versus Evil. No one's talking about Naito taking on Sonata at Wrestle Kingdom. It has no buzz to it for whatever reason. We're going to talk about in our third question and debate topic is AEW and how cold they are, but we have New Japan Pro Wrestling on ice right now. There's no North American fans talking about them at all. And I know it ebbs and flows and the talent there, AEW created a vacuum taking away a lot of their stars, but we're seeing sort of the result of them not building young talent. Chad and I were talking about it on Wrestling Tonight when G1 happened, the fact that they use that platform to bring Naito up. And that's not like something that's new. We talk about they let veterans win that, and that's the spot that they go to. But it was the perfect opportunity to build a new star, and they refused to do it. Now we're looking at Sonata versus Naito in a match that what's it really accomplishing? Because Sonata is already established. Naito clearly is already a Hall of Fame wrestler in all capacities. So I think they need this, and having David Finley be competing, if not winning the Impact Championship down the line, could help New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it's desperately what they need.
Yeah, I think with Josh Alexander, I think the first program that he does when he gets the championship back needs to be somebody in-house. I don't think I'd want to see somebody outside be the first program. So in-house, Chad, I agree with what you said. I think Brian Myers would be a very fun program to have. So do that in-house. I think that would be a good first program. And then after that, somebody from the outside to make the question is who's going to get the maximum amount of eyes on Impact. And I think that if you bring in somebody like Nick Nemeth or Dolph Ziggler, I think you're going to get a shit ton of eyes on you.
Riddle's out there too. I mean, Matt Riddle's an option.
Yeah.
Get his shit together. We don't. He's starting a weed brand. As far as match quality, Riddle and Alexander. If everything was square and there was no outside drama, dude, those matches would be barn burners.
I think everybody forgets about Matt Riddle because of all the bullshit that follows him around. I think that.
Also, I mean, think about the match quality. You said it before. Like we look at this meme that's created about Impact where they take old WWE talent and build their company around. This would be the complete opposite because I think there's so much more to give. Even though Ziggler is approaching, the upper stages of middle age and all that stuff, he still has a lot to give in the ring because he hasn't worked that much. I mean, he's been working a very limited style for the past 19 years. He's been in-house in WWE. He had that run in the mid 2000s 2010 to 2014 where he was really leaned on in the IC title picture. But man, I would like to see him take the reins off and work that Japanese style and then be able to go almost 60 minutes with Josh Alexander. I think personally as a fan, selfishly, that would be the best option. I mean, there's so many dream matches here and Alexander being back, like we talk about it every single week on Brace for Impact. It is a godsend to the wrestling world, not just Impact. He is a gift to the wrestling world, and I think he's one of the best guys that nobody talks about. He was number 5, I believe, in PWI. He almost deserves to be higher. It's insane.
Yeah, I think you're right too, Ace. I think that these guys from WWE that's not like people put a lot of focus on age, and when you're not doing anything, and you're especially with WWE because you're not allowed to work any indie dates either. Like you're pretty much preserving your body. So I think there's a lot left to give with somebody like that.
Someone was talking about age and like how it's looked at differently here. And if you look at some ages and compare them when Ric Flair was making his comeback or when he was at his end of his run in WCW. And then even when Hogan came back to WWE for Mr. America, some of the ages we're looking at for guys like Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Adam Copeland, they're approaching ages where it used to be a dinosaur in wrestling where you don't even blink an eye at it anymore. You look at some of these ages and you're just like, Christian is sitting doing the best work of his career, almost 50. So we're like
Jericho.
Same thing with Jericho. Jericho's over 50. So it is a different time to be a wrestling fan. And it's a different time for the wrestling business where they're putting more emphasis. I mean, it's chicken or the egg type of stuff. Are they able to last longer in the ring because there's more emphasis on health and safety? Or is it because for other reasons? I think it's a situation of we're just benefiting now seeing these guys, the longevity, because gone are the days, like you said, that'll work. We were talking about it for Shot Nostalgia, 20 to 25 days shows a month each for WWF. They were running 20 to 25 shows a month. That is happening. They're putting miles on their body and then take into account no emphasis on concussion protocol, no emphasis on health and safety, drink a Miller Lite, take a Vicodin and go out to the next town. That's what it was. So we're living in a golden age because of that reason. And the health and safety comes first for these wrestlers. And we're seeing us benefit because now they're working into their 50s at a high rate.
NWA would work twice on Sundays. They'd run 2 shows on Sundays. And then you'd look at somebody like Dr. Death Steve Williams and be like, man, that guy's 60 years old. Be like, no, he's not. He's fucking 28. 28 years old, man.
Yeah, it's a wonder what, not eating Percocets and Somas like candy will do for your health, man.
Right.
Everybody plays video games now. It's a little bit different culture backstage.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anybody have any final thoughts on Josh Alexander before we move on to our final topic?
There's a lot of stuff on the table for him.
Put the title on him right away at Bound for Glory. We need it to happen. I think it's we've been keeping it warm. I love Shelley's run. I like what they did with Steve Macklin, but the king is back. Put him back on the throne.
Yeah, I'm pumped because I think there's a lot of compelling feuds for that title with Alexander holding it. So it should be an exciting time in Impact.
Well, we didn't even mention Leo Rush, bro. Like that's the other conversation. Like he's out there as well.
He is. And honestly, Chad, I thought that's who you were going to say when you first started, when you talked about 2 guys being in-house. And yeah, I think Leo's talk about a guy who's had trouble in other promotions. Seems like he's doing really well. in Impact. So I mean, he's on the horizon as well. I mean, we talk about every week how the top of the card's pretty crowded in a good way in Impact. But interesting. Chad, Sneed, you guys both mentioned Brian Myers. That could be a really interesting build to a storyline because right now Moose has got a contract for a title match, for a world title match. He won it during the Feast or Fired, and Moose and Myers are big buddies right now, man. And they were kind of, so you could have a rift between those two guys and then have a match for the briefcase with Myers coming out on top. That could be a cool way to get there.
Absolutely. Myers has been awesome too. People look at Brian Myers. I think everyone's so stuck in their Fed brain way of how guys are presented. He changed the way his body looks. He works like a big guy. I mean, he is a guy who feels like a main eventer on the Impact roster. I think people have to look past what he did elsewhere. He is a guy who's a stalwart on the Impact brand. And I think it's, he deserves his I believe like whoever's going to feud with Josh Alexander, like you said, Sneed, they're not winning the title. So it's important to keep that in perspective, but that's why it's like heating up Moose would be perfect. Cause it's already thought out. It's sitting in the freezer waiting to be out there. And Brian Myers would be awesome too. Cause he could take a loss and continue and help emphasize what they're building with Alexander.
All right, guys, let's move on. We'll have our final topic of the evening. With Dynamite ratings low, who is to blame? The promotion for turning off fans with missteps and backstage turmoil, or fans for still harping on issues that have been resolved?
All right, I'll start. I think it's on, and I might be in the minority here, but I think it's on the promotion, man. And mainly just because, the four of us, we're diehards. We're hardcore fans. We watch every week. We eat everything up. First, I'll also preface by saying ratings don't mean shit to me. But if for the sake of conversation and debate here, I think it's on the promotion. We're just now a month removed from All In and all the shit that went down. So, I mean, even though because the four of us have our finger on the pulse of everything and know that shit's been rectified. And we've seen the interviews with people like Jericho saying like, yeah, things are on the up and up over here. We're doing really good. The average fan doesn't know that yet. And, I think AEW and Tony Khan took a big risk in bringing Punk back, and you gotta, and it didn't pan out, obviously. So you gotta pay up. There's gonna be consequences to that, and you gotta take responsibility for that. Like I think they're gonna get there just fine. I mean, I think that what they're doing right now, they are in a good spot. But like I said, we're just like 4 or 5 weeks removed from this at this point, man. It's really been such a loaded summer and early fall of wrestling. Like, it feels like this was a long time ago, but it really wasn't. And so, I mean, I think there's still going to be a little fallout here. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, what we're seeing week to week from AEW right now, I think has been some of the best stuff we've seen from them, from like the first year and a half when they were really roaring and ripping, man, especially when we first got crowds back. I think we're at that level or higher right now. And the fact that, there might still be a little bit of fallout and some fans being kind of skeptical or kind of frustrated with the product is just going to inspire them to continue to do better.
Yeah, man, I completely agree with what you're saying here. And I'm going to go with kind of a middle of the ground answer. I'm going to say neither. I just think right now it's a kind of it's a sign of the times right now. It's tough competition. This is a tough time for everybody. It's an oversaturation of the market. We got sports coming back. We also have the baseball playoffs, which is important to remind. And we have political debates. They went head to head with the Republican political debate and got smashed by them. And that has to be kept in mind. And it's a tough time slot. I do think right now they're ice cold for whatever reason. It could be the loss of CM Punk. It could be a lack of star power. We haven't seen what Adam Copeland has really meant on physical TV ratings. We talked about this on Wrestling Tonight. There's a lot to be said about his social media buzz compared to what we're actually seeing on the TV screen. We're going to see exactly what those ratings look like from the past week with his first match happening on Dynamite. But they did overcome the chaos and the unsteady nature of the perception. I think that is always the thing here. It's perception. I don't think it affects the product as much as we think on screen. I think also we were always going to see a downturn after All In. If you look at All In as a celebration of sorts where the product was reaching the apex, there's always going to be a fall down afterward because that was the party. That was really what people were building towards. It was always going to come down. The attendance was going to hurt. All this stuff was a perfect storm. And I have this, I mean, I have all the numbers in front of me and I pulled them up. We're not going to go through them because, as Colton said, I don't think the numbers mean a lot. I don't think it doesn't reflect what the product is on screen. I think a lot of times when we have the product on screen, everyone's so caught up on how many people are watching. I don't give a shit if 1.5 million people are watching. Am I enjoying the product? Are they progressing towards stories? Are they investing in the future? Are they going to plant seeds that are going to be amazing down the line? But there was a quote from Dave Meltzer that this was back in June of last year. And I pulled it from the newsletter because you guys know I love Dave Meltzer. And he said, historically, whenever WWE gets hot, its opposition goes down, and WWE getting hot is likely a key part of the decline in AEW's ratings all over the world. In 1849, the US Raw has been up 19 weeks in a row from the same show 1 year earlier. SmackDown's been up 21 weeks in a row, and NXT's been up 22 of the last 26 weeks. On the flip side, Dynamite has been down from the year before 26 straight weeks, and Rampage has been down 24 of the last 26 weeks. This was last year. So the same trend is happening. We watch them. I mean, compare the date from the year before, they're down. And is that because CM Punk? Is that because the culture? Is that because it could be a huge mashup baked into all one picture? I just think right now AEW is a cold product, and we're seeing the reflection because of maybe the things. I mean, we listen to Flagship every single week. You guys are critical of the lack of storytelling, but I think it's a delayed response. We're seeing the payoff. Yes, on the screen right now, it's a great product. We like what we're seeing, but we're also dealing with the fallout of things that happened a year ago when there was a lack of storytelling.
Yeah, I'm putting it on the fans, man. I'm putting it on the fans because we hear it so much, man, that they harp on that there's no story being told. And that's one of the biggest arguments that you hear. And that's such right now, in my opinion, this is probably the second best time for storytelling in this company's history. I think the storytelling right now, the amount of stories and the amount of intertwining that's going on in the stories, it's the best that they've had in a long time. And I think fans still harping on things that have happened in the past and not giving it a chance because you hear that there's no story, and that tells me that they're not watching. So I'm putting it on the fans for not watching and giving it a shot after, because the stories were on a downslope and then everything happened with CM Punk. And I think that they're just coupling all that together and not giving it a shot now. I'm putting it on the fans.
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of blame to go around. Obviously, the way they ran their company for a little bit, not giving us stories, giving us dream matches, trying to fit this monster roster onto 2 hours prior to Collision becoming a thing, trying to trying to placate ROH and its existence, Hurt, trying to get their feet under them with this whole New Japan relationship. You're bringing in these faces that casuals don't see. I think there's a big reason for that with growth. Like, we're not seeing growth. I think even the stigmas, the online stigmas out there that are kind of perpetuated by the Jim Cornettes of the world. I think there's a certain fan base that may have given this company a try if it wasn't for those voices out there constantly railing against it. I think WWE has a hand in it. They're fucking killing it right now. They're super popular. Like Ace said, when they're very popular, every other company suffers from a numbers standpoint. What's the phrase? A raising tide lifts all ships. That is to a certain extent, but the big ship always takes more, and you're left with the scraps. Now there's more scraps when wrestling's popular in general, but I still think when WWE is just on fire, there's only so much time a lot of fans have, and that's what they're going to pick, and everyone else is going to suffer for it. But with what Sneed's saying, all of those things are definitely reasons, but I think one of the biggest reasons, man, there is a stigma out there that these guys cannot shake with quick fixes. I think there is a fan narrative out there that has attached itself to this company that the locker room's constantly in turmoil. No one gets along. I think that's bullshit. There's the stigma, no story, too many faces we don't know. No one gets a build. All of these narratives are attached to this company. And if you're watching the product, you see that they're making strides towards alleviating these, But for casual fans, it's like, once you lose me, I'm gone. And I think the only way you bring those people back is just by steady, good storytelling. Now, right now, story's good, but it's going to take more than just a 2-month run of good story. You're going to have to do it time after time after time, where fans will consistently keep hearing, damn, that story's great. That's compelling. It hits social media and it makes people think, well, maybe I should go back in. Maybe I should give it a shot. I've had down times in my fandom where I got sick of it, and I would hear little things. I would hear, hey, there's this guy, CM Punk. He just dropped this pipe bomb. When the pipe bomb happened, I was not watching the product on a week-to-week basis. I was peripherally hearing about these things. And eventually, when you hear so many things, I hear the pipe bomb. I hear there's this new faction coming back called the Wyatt family. The more and more I heard cool things happening got me to come back to WWE. And I think there's a lot of fans right now that are like that with AEW. They heard so much bullshit, rightfully so, the fault of AEW. They saw so much of that they were like, you know what? I'm not going to watch this as religiously as I was. But if you consistently put out weekly good product, which I think they've been doing rather well, but they have to keep doing it and people will come back. So I blame the fans a little bit, because you got to give them a shot, but I understand why fans are that way. They just kind of give up, and that's the nature of media, man. Like, once you're gone, you're gone. It's going to take a lot to get me to come back, and it's up to AEW to do that. But the fans need to tune in and give it a shot. Give it a shot.
I think what you said too about WWE, when they are crushing it, and you got to remember when AEW was at its peak, when they first started, when everything first got it, and it felt like a movement, that this was the alternative, finally a place that will give fans what they want instead of just almost booking in the exact opposite. This was the place where fans were going to have product that they could be proud of. And now that we're looking at AEW through the lens of WWE's doing great stuff, the Bloodline storyline, Judgment Day, they're pushing guys. And Triple H's got to remember, has control of creative now. And like, you can trace the birth of AEW with the resurgence and the upward swing of NXT. And that was pushing towards the popularity. And a lot of those fans were split, where the energy has been at this point, AEW is being put on a pedestal where they have to meet what those fans were feeling at the time. And it's hard to sustain that energy, a movement. It's a revolution for 4 years. There's eventually going to be a downturn and a disenchantment with the product. I think people felt that way. I think Punk was a microcosm of that. That situation was kind of encapsulating everything that went down and how people were feeling. But no matter what, company's going to have ebbs and flows. There's going to be popular times and unpopular times. I think what you said was perfect. I mean, it's a delayed response. I think right now what we're seeing in the ratings is a product of what we saw from weeks and weeks and months of bad booking, where they weren't telling stories on screen. They were having one-offs. There wasn't a lot of payoff. It was stuff that we were getting frustrated with. And if you watch our shows, we're consistently talking about that. So if we look at it now, it's like I said, a delayed response where people are so quick to saying that what's happening on the screen, the ratings are corresponding. I think it's a delay. We're not going to see the results of the payoff of the Adam Cole MJF stuff until months from now, because then it brings fans casually to come in. I think really what we're seeing here, again, the Nielsen ratings don't mean dick to me. I don't really care. Same. I'm watching it from a different lens. To me, I think we have to, and we talked about in Wrestling Time, we have to find a better way of assessing who's consuming the product, because I think you can count somebody that's watching a 1.5-minute reel on Instagram of something on AEW. That counts as a view. That counts for something to me. I just understand it's a metric that they got to please Warner Brothers Discovery, and same with WWE. They got to please, Fox and everybody involved in that. They have to find a way to use the metric, because that's in-house. There hasn't been anything else established, but I think the Nielsen ratings are a bunch of shit, and I don't think it actually reflects what the product is. So is the product down? Of course, but I don't think it's as down as everyone thinks it is.
Yeah, I don't think it's as down as everybody thinks it is. And this is a gauge for me. I agree with you. Ratings, they don't mean dick to me. But I kind of gauge it on, I have a friend that is just absolutely eaten up with Fed brain. I mean, it's almost sickening, and I feel like it's almost if I would be close to this guy. But I get now I'm getting text messages from him that says, hey, explain to me this MJF Adam Cole thing. Explain to me what's going on. So he's inquiring to me because he knows that I'm an AEW guy as to what their biggest story is right now. So I feel like this is kind of a start of people being kind of coming back and to see, well, he was never there, but people casually coming to see what's going on AEW.
That's a good call, Ace, on we're seeing the ratings based off of months ago shitty booking. That's so true. Like it goes back to kind of what I was saying. It's like consistency. The consistency we're showing now, if it continues, we'll start to see down the line the ratings pay off for it.
Yeah, I think that's what it takes to get the casuals back in house. You have to find, like Sneed was saying, that's a perfect example of it. Someone has to tell you what's going on, and it's got to find you. And there's millions of people out there, like I referenced before with Saturday night's main event. There was a time 35 million people watched a title match between Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan. Will we ever reach that point? Never again, because of the way network TV is constructed. At the time, they probably had fucking 4 channels, 5 channels. It didn't matter. But if we can reach a point where we did in the 90s, where there is close to 12 million people on one night watching both products, that would be amazing. I just think we'll ever get there again, because the way we're assessing, the way people consume is so much different now. The competition's out there. Like, you have to keep in mind, they're not only competing with other wrestling shows, other things that are live on cable TV, but they're competing against the catalog of every TV show ever that exists on Peacock, on Netflix, on Hulu. And not to mention, you can go back and go head to head with Dynamite yourself on Tuesday or Wednesday night or against Raw and go watch a Raw from 1998. So you're essentially competing against yourself. So the whole thing is completely lopsided. So I don't think that the ratings reflect, because a lot of people don't even have live cable. How are we reflecting the numbers of people that either watch it online or consume it through results on Cage Match or on Wrestling Observer or on Fightful? The wrestling fan is so different now. It's not sit on a couch and watch with your remote in hand. That's just not what it is anymore.
All right, guys. Anybody have any final thoughts on ratings and AEW before we move on to our round robin?
Wrestling is a world of peaks and valleys, man, where it ebbs and flows. Sometimes what's the drop we have, Sneed? Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Sometimes maybe shit.
I also just want to say, don't let ratings and what's popular create a hive mind for you to decide what you think is cool. Just because one of the talking heads, whether it be Eric Bischoff, Jim Cornette, or even Dave Meltzer, tells you something is good, don't listen to him. Have an opinion that you form for yourself.
Yep.
Go give the product a fair shake, because it's easy to get disenchanted with something and stop watching. I've done it with WWE. I don't know how many times, but inevitably you hear something that brings you back. If AEW keeps doing what they're doing right now, keeps putting out good story week to week, especially with, like we said, months down the road, this MJF Adam Cole story paying off, it's going to get people back for sure.
Yep.
And worst comes to worst, you just trot Undertaker out on NXT to do a video game commercial, whatever,
The best thing I've been seeing lately over the past couple of days is just these blown out of proportion things that are going to happen. Like I saw where WWE's bringing back Tupac tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to hear from Andre the Giant on AEW. Like it's just it's crazy this Tuesday.
You know what helps the AEW product? Tony Khan being unhinged on Twitter. That's the best, man.
Hell yeah.
I love it.
2 bold assholes. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll move on. We have a round robin.
Round robin.
If you're Triple H, do you sign CM Punk? Whew.
Just give him one word.
Yeah, a little brief one. Just a brief. I'll say, oh man, this is tough, man. I say no. I think that it's a possibility down the line they will, because it'll do big business, and maybe I'm cutting my nose off to spite my face, because it would draw money in the here and now, maybe not in the long term. And it's fan service, WWE pulling out those guys for one last run. I mean, that's typical WWE fan service. But if I'm him and I'm looking at my roster and how well they're firing right now, I would not touch anything that may alter that, because who knows? He may come back and play nice for the entirety of his run, but man, I would be nervous. Like you got a fox in the hen house, man. I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah, I'm going to go no as well. It's just too big of a risk, man. I mean, things are, like we said, WWE's hot right now, and Not that, I mean, they could also wash their hands and part ways with him, and honestly, I don't think it would affect their ratings that much at all. But I don't know. Selfishly, I want to see it just because of the potential for the chaos. It would absolutely get me watching again if they trotted him out there on Survivor Series for sure. But I don't know, man. I think it's too big of a risk.
I'm going to say hell no. I don't think that, like you said, the product is so hot right now. Everything's firing on all cylinders. There's a lot of story to be told with Cody and Roman Reigns and the Judgment Day and Bloodline. Why would you introduce this chaotic thing into it? Like, what is the benefit? How much higher could the profits go? Everything's record sky high. Is it really going to be up there? I mean, they can create a moment, but that doesn't seem like what WWE would want to do outside of if it's going to make sense financially. And I can't see it being a long-term success. Yeah, in the immediate, it creates a buzz, but do they really need it right now?
Yeah, I'm going to say no for the same reason, man. Why do you need him? Right now, everything's so hot. What are you're bringing in this guy who can potentially be a fucking Texas tornado in the back?
Yeah,
you don't need it, man. If you want,
shocked they didn't sign him for NXT for Tuesday.
that's true.
Hey, we don't know yet. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, he could be on there right now. It's 8:06 on Tuesday, so who knows, man. All right, guys. Well, Ace, it's been nice having you back as a guest. Always fun to have you on, man. I love everything you do and appreciate everything you do for the Tavern. So let everybody know where they can find you.
You guys can find me at ACEFIELD RETRO on Instagram. You guys can also find me in person. I have a few dates coming up. My next date ring announcing will be on October 21st in Amesbury, Massachusetts for Rad Pro Wrestling Presents Power Transfer. I'll be known as Fred Vernon that night. We'll be back in 1994. You guys also catch me next weekend, 10/27, Halloween Haunted Havoc. Remarkable Wrestling in Wisconsin. We got some great dates of this. Announced the date November 18th in Port Jeff Station. Dream Sequence. We got the Motor City Machine Guns back in town going after the Remarkable Tag Team Championship in a triple threat match with Above the Rest and Miracle Generation. And Motor City Machine Guns going to be an epic match. And you guys can also obviously, check me out here in the Tavern. I got all these shows that we were talking about. Brace for Impact Wrestling tonight. Shot Nostalgia. Always hanging around. Make sure you guys, if you leave a review on Instagram, let me know. I'll send you a sticker for free. Just let me know. And I'll send it your way.
Free's good. Take him up on that. All right, guys, that is going to wrap us up for this edition of the Turnbuckle Debate. Make sure you guys are heading over to theturnbuckletavern.com for all of your tavern needs. You'll find everything you need over there. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, t-shirt. Get yourself a t-shirt. Colton, get your shit in, man.
Brace for Impact Thursday nights on the Turnbuckle Tavern YouTube channel at 10:10 p.m. and then catch us on audio, Spotify, and Apple on Friday morning.
All right, man. With all that being said, court is dismissed.